I've heard a lot of ticks, vocal ticks, but I have not heard a tick yet in my practice that's a racial slur. Now, I may not be as old and seasoned as some of the other psychiatrists, but I know I just have not. And I've been working with people of different races. And I'm not saying it can't be, but I'm just letting you know I have not, and that's just a fact.
To the Spirit in Mind broadcast with your hosts, Bishop C. Guy Robinson and Dr. Jonathan Shepherd, where we explore faith and mental health perspectives on current affairs. Let's get into today's discussion with the Spirit in Mind.
I'm gonna add this in, and then Dr. Shepherd, I want to hear you. Since I'm on the cultural competence piece. Cultural competence, let's say it happened, right? The accommodations, as Dr. Shepherd said, piece that is Dr. Shepherd's concern, is a thing that's there. So the lack of accommodation, the lack of really information. We're having all this conversation about Tourette syndrome and what it's like to live with it after the incident. Right? So that's why we have to talk about it, because even though it's an opportunity to develop some more cultural competence.
Yes.
About persons who live with Tourette's. It's also an opportunity to learn about how cultural competence could have helped the editing.
Right.
Because it's interesting that the editing of the BAFTA Awards, for which they did apologize after the fact. So we're learning things again. We're developing cultural competence after the fact.
Right.
And that's why these kinds of conversations and diversity and equity and inclusion and decision-making policies are important, so that we aren't always learning after the fact.
After the fact.
But the BAFTA Awards, I just jotted down a partial list of what was edited. So there was a mindset to edit out political commentary because a comment about Free Palestine was made and was cut out. So there was sensitivity to the political commentary. The host, Alan Cumming, made a joke that appeared to be a reference to President Donald Trump, using a Zootopia reference, and kind of inferring something about lying and corrupt leaders and that kind of thing. That was edited out. So a couple of expletives in terms of language were bleeped out. And then other speeches were edited down for time. So there was a mindset to be sensitive to all of those, but not a mindset to bleep out the racial slur. And so it is possible, there you go, to be sensitive to the fact that two things can be true at the same time. We can be sensitive to what it's like to live with Tourette syndrome, but we can also acknowledge that it is really wearisome to always be acceptable collateral damage.
Wow.
The race issue is always acceptable collateral damage. Move on, get over it. That's always, we dismiss it. Well, people are racist. Okay. And so what does it feel like to always be a part of the acceptable collateral damage that you can just dismiss or ignore? Both of those things can be true at the same time.
Wow. Wow. And that's powerful. And Bishop, what I would even argue is that when you stack up the various things that were deleted and then you look at what was kept, what's the most impactful? What was kept? Because people get over political parties, people move on from leadership. But when we talk about identity, that hurts. And that's what lingers the most. So thank you even for how you describe that, because what I'm hearing now is the prioritization of where our identity was not even held in the same regard as another political or same regard as a political joke or even expletive and stuff. No, people can move on from that. But when you're talking about how a person identity is allowed to remain in a recording and people don't have the mindset to even know how important that is disturbing. So disturbing, so disturbing. And so thank you for that. And so we want to make sure we lift that up. One of the things, Bishop, I want you to address, and I'm going to kind of lead you into it because this is the part where I struggle with this, to be honest with you. Because when I work with people who have Tourette's, when I work with people who have these vocal tics and things like that, the part that I did not share is that it's also part of an executive dysfunction. So there's a part of the brain that allows for executive function and capacity. And so when you have executive function, there are certain things that will come to your mind, but that executive function should kick in and you don't say everything that you think. All right. That particular area of the brain for those who have Tourette's is not as strong and typically is where you see some of those deficiencies. It's so odd. And I mentioned earlier how stimulants work for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, that sometimes we can even use stimulants in Tourette syndrome because that particular stimulant actually helps boost that particular area of the brain. So yes, you did hear me correctly that the ADHD medications can cause tics, but they also could help in relieving tics too. So it's just so happen the way medications work. But the thing that I want to challenge Bishop, that I want him to address in this particular episode is I've heard a lot of tics, vocal tics, but I have not heard a tic yet in my practice that's a racial slur. Now, and so I haven't. All right. Now, I may not be as old and seasoned as some of the other psychiatrists, but I know I just have not. And I've been working with people of different races. And I'm not saying they can't be, but I'm just letting you know I have not. And that's just a fact. Also, what stirs me up is there's even scripture talking about what's down inside of you, what's in your heart is going to end up coming up out of your mouth. And so that's what's really been striking me, Bishop. Because for those who I've been working with, I know that there are people who use explicitive or curse words, as we say. There may be different ways that people may express themselves through those vocal tics because of things that they see. They may see somebody who they like, and they might say something to that person a little bit inappropriate because they have feelings, romantic feelings, or however type of feelings toward that person. But Bishop, what's been struggling within me is I could hear some of our folks in the religious world saying, well, was that really inside of him? Is that why that comes up, Dr. Shepherd? Is that why that particular racial slur comes up out of him? Because that's what's a part of who he is. I can't say, that's not for me to answer. All right. But I also want to hear Bishop Robinson's point on that, because I know that there's scripture that some people might say, well, it came from his heart, so that had to come out of his mouth. And again, I'm just simplifying it just for your sake on this podcast. But I'll be honest with you, Bishop, I was really struggling with that. So hopefully I queued it up for you to help me out and to help our audience out.
Thank you. Suddenly this seat got hot. Hot seat. No. It's all good. So you're asking what are the spiritual implications or?
Yes. What are the spiritual implications? Yes, sir.
Yeah. It's that, of course, that's hard to say because there is no direct. First, let's give the theological answer. There's no direct reference in scripture to Tourette's syndrome. That is a diagnosis post-biblical history. But are there cases where in the scripture, does the Bible make reference to the mind? Absolutely. Multiple times. Does it refer to persons with concerning conditions that most likely may have been something that we changed the nomenclature for in the scientific era? Absolutely. A change in nomenclature does not mean a change in the experience. You know what I mean? So the change of nomenclature is simply giving language to something that is different from what it was called before. That happens commonly. So even even in modern medicine, you may change the name of something. Schizophrenia, the dissociative identity. So change in nomenclature is not necessarily a change in the phenomenon itself. It's just as understanding and language evolves, we give other language to it. So there are things that happen in scripture. Could someone in scripture have had an impulsive moment that was associated with that? Absolutely, theoretically, absolutely. We know enough. The Bible doesn't consider itself exhausting every nook and cranny. That wasn't the focus. The concern was to give us enough to live godly. And so with that in mind, having said that, is it possible, theoretically, just as a critical thinker, for a person to have a moment, and sometimes maybe even Job said, the thing that I greatly feared has come upon me, right? What he meant was that at some point I've sat around thinking about the possibilities of these scenarios. It's not that I wanted them, but anxiety is a part of the human condition, right? Yeah. So sometimes we can find ourselves thinking about worst case scenarios. This is my most benign explanation, right? Taking away, charges of being racism and all that, but thinking on the most benign. Is it possible to have anxious ruminations? Absolutely. If we are having one of those, and we have the executive functioning things in place to be able to taper those, to avoid those, absolutely. And people never know. If we doesn't mean we wanted them to happen, but it means, I know I've walked into a room before and said, Lord, don't let me fall in front of all these people. Don't let me fall on this stage. Don't let me trip. Don't let me trip. Don't let me say something, weird. Right. And sometimes if you ruminate over that, and then I'll toss that back to you, Dr. Shepard. If you ruminate over that as a person with Tourette's syndrome, then you may not have the buffers as much in place to avoid that moment that you didn't want to happen.
Yes. Yeah. No, that is very, very true. And again, those who deal with Tourette's syndrome, like I said, they typically have comorbid disorders. Very rarely is it just Tourette's syndrome.
Right.
If it is, I'll be a little concerned about the people who are diagnosing that person. And so what we don't know is what were the other comorbid disorders that was going alongside with this person. Like I've said, did this person have ADHD? Does this person have an anxiety disorder? Do they have obsessive compulsive disorder? Those are the typical comorbid disorders that we normally see with Tourette's syndrome. So, and especially of people who have anxiety, as they ruminate about those thoughts, typically when you can have those continued repetitive thoughts, you end up actually forecasting and then carrying out your worst fears. Doesn't always happen that way, of course not, but there's an increased risk of that happening. And so, yes, I appreciate you, Bishop, asking, responding to my question. I think that has been helpful. I just want to share with people as we're starting to wind down here is that regardless of a person having a certain disorder, regardless of a situation where you may feel yourself in, where you may not feel that the people around you respect you, are somehow belittling your work or belittling your work and your worth, we here at Spirit and Mind want you to know that you are enough. We are encouraging you. This episode is really to uplift, encourage, and inspire. I have not forgotten what we said at the very beginning. We want to bring some insight to help you understand what may be going through the minds of people, so that you're able to understand. One thing I love about understanding, and I love working with Bishop Robinson and those who are critical thinkers, is that when you begin to understand, it should hopefully bring some sense of peace and calmness. The situations may still be messed up. I understand that, absolutely. But when you have some comprehension and you have some insight, that's why even in the current administrations, and I'm not just talking about our presidential administration, even when there are certain current administrations that I don't understand, I recognize that they are doing things that are harmful to multiple people, to groups of people, not just individuals, but groups of people. Understanding a little bit about where they are can give me a little bit of solace to know something's not right. And it helps me to know how to be able to adjust. It helps me to know how to be able to walk and how to be able to behave, and then to know how to be able to pray. And so that's why we have these type of conversations, so impactful conversations. Remember that racism is a public health concern. This is something where we do not allow others to attack our identity. We do not allow other people just to say, "Oh, it's all right." We grew up using those type of words. No, they're not acceptable, and they stick with people, and they will cause traumatic reactions and experiences that may even force you to have to go seek mental health care and treatment. Because if you don't, sometimes the result is anger, bitterness, and some things that we don't want to see. I'll just say this: please know that if you are in the need of mental health services, reach out to us. We're here to help. I provide direct care services. Bishop Robinson, he provides direct care services. We just do it on different platforms. That's all. Bishop is a pastor, wonderful pastor on the west side of Baltimore. I provide direct care services for people in Maryland and in the DC, District of Columbia area. So please reach out to us, Spirit of Mind Health at gmail.com, or hit us up on one of our platforms, and we'll do our best to make sure you're linked up with those services. I'm going to stop there, Bishop.
I'll tag on to that. What you don't want to do is ignore those things. That's why we're talking about the subject. I hope we're clear on that as we close. They're talking about the BAFTA awards and talking about a video that was posted on the president's social media site. They are, if you will, symptoms. Mm-hmm. And that's why we're discussing them. But ignoring symptoms does not treat the disease. That's true in medicine. It's true in spirituality. Whether you want to call it an illness or whether you want to call it sin, whatever you want to call it, and that's not to make them automatically equivalent. But I'm just saying, in both things, there's the condition, and then there are the symptoms. And so we're discussing these as symptoms. Ignoring it does not make it go away. It just means you're waiting for the next symptom, which may be more intense than the previous one.
Yep.
Because symptoms are trying to send a message that there's something concerning in the bigger picture that's going on. And so that's why it's so important. And so that's human nature. We get uncomfortable with subjects. We get uncomfortable in our body. And we try to act like, well, it's not that bad. It's not that bad until it gets that bad.
Right.
Which is exactly why we have to talk about it, because prevention is so much easier of a process than trying to catch up from what we ignored. So thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us. We might even continue on this subject because there are more symptoms. And we haven't even heard from, got to close, but we haven't even heard from actor Michael B. Jordan or Delroy Lindo. They did make a brief statement, Lindo did, about saying we just continue to do our job. And, we had to get through that moment. We wish BAFTA had been a little more sensitive, but that's nicely saying is somebody dropped the ball on cultural competence and made the race topic acceptable collateral damage while addressing all of the other issues that they felt needed to be edited. That's why diversity, equity, inclusion, and these kind of conversations are so important. We'll continue them by God's grace next time on Spirit in Mind.
Don't forget to follow us on social media. We're on Facebook at Spirit in Mind, and we're also on Instagram at Spirit in Mind Live. Join us next time for a new episode of Spirit in Mind.